Hey, and welcome to TSOB. This is a podcast for entrepreneurs who are interested in investing or starting their own funds. We are Adam Anderson and Zach Eikenberry. Join us to get a behind-the-scenes look at the relationships between founding entrepreneurs and the VCs that invest in them.
At the time of my life, raising money and spending it on businesses, high-risk ventures, it's the truth. And I pass it on to you, Zach.
And I don't know, man. I'm trying to improv with you and yes and.
Yeah, you yes, yeah, but now I made so you had to sing it. Bam!
Bam.
That's because venture and business is a lot like improv, and if you don't have a team that you can riff with, then you put yourself at a really high risk of having complete and utter failure due to the just horrible people you're working with. Remember, it's never a you problem; it's always a them problem.
Yes. If people would do their effing job, you wouldn't have to do yours.
That's great. So I've decided that I'm going to, I've already done this a couple of times where I'm like, here's a smart thing I heard you say at the end of it. I'm writing that one down. If people would do their effing job, you wouldn't have to do yours. Okay, so tell me about being a CEO.
Yes. I find it fascinating that there are days in which all I do is talk with somebody and email. So all I do is communicate with people, and the organization moves forward.
Weird.
That it is so crazy to me that words actually build things.
Yeah. Well, that's an executive role, right?
Sure. It still blows my mind though that I don't functionally do anything other than talk and communicate all day.
Right. And that's cool because now you used to measure how well I did a thing, and now you have to measure how well am I communicating. And all of a sudden, when people don't do the thing you expect them to do, the first thing you think about is, did I communicate correctly?
Yeah. My entire job is to get results through other people. I don't get the results anymore. And so I sit at this intersection. That's what I mean. Because I grew up on a farm, right? And all my early jobs and work were actually producing something. Like one of my first jobs in high school was short order cook at a little diner. And I would actually, somebody gives me an order, I would make it, I would hand it over to them, I would clean the dishes, scrub the grill every night, and there was a result.
Yep.
And I would go home tired. And now I go home anxious, and I don't feel that tired, except for I'm mentally wiped out from communicating all day.
So you are currently in a very nice apartment, and you don't have to take care of the lawn. I'm currently renting a downtown house, and part of the rent, I don't have to take care of the lawn. I'm about to move into a place with a larger yard, et cetera, and I will then have to take care of the lawn, and I'm so excited because one of the things that brought me the most joy for years was mowing the lawn next to the pool because I was like, I did a thing with my own hands and I see a difference and there's a result. And I put in like 30 minutes worth of work and I saw it and it was completed. And sure, I'll have to come back and mow the lawn again later. But when you work through other people as an executive, it can be incredibly depressing because I cannot tell you how many times I would just spin around in my chair wondering, what is it that I do here? Because eventually, well, I don't know about you, but I've gotten to the point where when I was running my company, I didn't feel like I was working if I wasn't talking. And then I would go and distract literally everybody away from the thing that they were supposed to do because all I wanted to do was keep talking. So there's interesting lesson learned. Shut up unless you have something really important to say, because when you communicate, and you do work through other people, that is going to be the people are going to listen and they're going to do what you say. And so, yeah. Well, hey, um, long time no see. How you doing? Let's check in. You're I had a couple topics I wanted to talk about, but is there anything that you wanted to jump in? And did you have a thing that's on your heart that you're like, man, this stage in raising money and venture capital, here's what I'm thinking.
You know, I have one observational comment from this week,
Okay.
and then I have one idea that I'm teasing out when it comes to raising money. And we'll see how long this takes us. It could be pretty quick. The observation is we were headed down a pathway with a VC who, out of the intro call, you say, this is where we are revenue wise, this is where we're going, this is what we've previously raised, this is what we're raising now, here's what that raise is going to do, et cetera, et cetera. Like you have a crafted story. And so the VC said something like, hey, you're a little early for us, but we love your space. Let's get into this conversation. We said, right on. Let's do that. We go to the GP, the general partner. He goes, we love your space. We really want to be in on this. You're a little early, but we've gone early before. We can do this for you. And then I get an email back, and we do the due diligence. We're data room dumping now. We're sending forecasts over. We're going back and forth. I have my CFO engaged with them, answering questions, etc. And it goes to committee, and we get a note that says, "You're too early for us."
Yeet.
And here's the thing. So at that point, where we've attempted to disqualify ourselves
multiple times,
and the VC is, hey, we're apologetic. We would love to come back with you later on, right? I'm always joking like, hey, later when you don't need us, we'll be around, right? I had this overwhelming sense that I had been lied to. And when I feel lied to, I don't get frustrated at the people who lie because they might have their own reasons. They don't see themselves as liars. But I hate being a person who can be lied to.
Ooh, interesting.
And so what my observation is, when we are outside of somebody's sweet spot, we should go away ourselves. We should fire ourselves from the process.
Yep.
Because they get paid on pipeline that moves through and deals that they bring forward. They are motivated differently.
Right.
And I get my hopes up, we waste our time. And so when somebody says, you're a little early for us, but we think we can make this happen, I'll say something to the extent of, well, if we're early for you, it doesn't sound like we're a fit. We'll circle back later. And the Maya Angelou thing, when somebody tells you who they are, believe them.
Yeah. And it's difficult because you want to, when you are in the middle of raising money and you're also in the middle of running a company, you chase every lead until you learn that that's the way that you fail. Right. And so every hour you spend doing the data dump, getting the VC what they need, every emotional hour you spend when you're carrying the responsibility of communicating with the VC and navigating that relationship is a sliver of time that you're not spent adding revenue to the company. It's a sliver of time that you're not actually growing the business. And so if you have 5 or 6 VCs that you're trying to date and you're trying to engage in, and they're all asking for stuff, you literally don't have the bandwidth to go grow the company to become the thing that they actually want you to be. And so there's no kindness of, we usually don't invest in companies that that don't fit our thesis and that don't do this and don't do that. The kindness you can give to a entrepreneur, if you are a VC, is to say right out of the gate, hey, you're not a match for how we invest. We can't wait till you get there. But the struggle I think I hear you say is that there's misalignment inside of some of these venture capital firms where the junior partner or the junior analyst needs to bring a certain amount of deal flow. And so they are going to bring any deal that they can get that looks and smells kind of close, just so that the GP and the committee can, and during the underwriting process and the voting process, have something to look at. Because if this person shows up and the GPs and the committee are supposed to be voting on what do we want to fund, and they don't have anything, that's their job, right? So I think that's interesting that you're painting a picture that the actual system and process for how do we look at, as a venture fund or as a private equity firm, how do we look at deals? That system is designed in such a way that it is not advantageous for the entrepreneur who is actually bringing the deal. I think that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my one observation, a lesson learned this week on this side of the table. The other is this idea, this hypothesis, right? And it comes from some advice I gave to somebody else this week. And then I thought, shoot, maybe I should listen to my own advice.
Nah.
So, in the managed service provider space, a smaller fish just ate a bigger fish. And a company called Kaseya just announced an acquisition for a company, Datto, which is public. Of course, they're taking it private. And then the fallout from that. So there's when you do this kind of thing, and when you have the reputation that you do, as Kaseya does in the MSP channel, you make a lot of people very nervous, right? They went through a major breach, but even worse than that, they fumbled the disclosures back in July 2021. And so of course it makes sense on paper. They had to make this move, etc. It's a venture backed deal. Acquire this company, they're going IPO. It's an arbitrage, and it makes sense to me. I see why they're doing it. But anyway, a competitor friend of mine who runs a company in the Kaseya Datto space, they said, well, what would you do if you're in my shoes? And I said, I would have a huge PR stunt, and I would raise money from the MSPs as they come along, because and there's a whole nother company out there, StorageCraft, who just announced that they lost their data backup disaster recovery company, and they just announced that 1 in every 10 of their servers just absolutely lost data. Like they're boom. So, and they have tens of thousands of MSPs worldwide on their system, and 1 in every 10 server down, and so like theoretically 10% of all the MSP stuff. So I said, you need to have a PR stunt in which you say, we're raising money from MSPs for MSPs because we're the only people who haven't lost or sold your data. And so
wow.
I say that to say, because that's a PR stunt. That's poking the bear. That's going right after it. And he's like, that's very interesting. And I thought to myself, wait a second. I have MSPs too.
What? You have hundreds of them.
What if I created a syndicate where they could all come and participate in my next round at a level they could afford?
Doesn't matter once you made a signature. Yeah.
$50,000, $100,000, bundle them up into $1 million or $2 million fund on our cap table, and let's raise that money. They're our customers anyway, and they see the amount of money that's happening with their vendors and the multiples their vendors get, and they're in the same space working just as hard, and they get half the multiple.
So okay, you are very attractive to me right now with your brain. I mean, just the brain. The face doesn't do it for me, but that's okay. Man. Somebody likes it. You're married. You've reproduced. It worked.
Had the time of my life.
Well played. Well played. A MSP is a professional services organization, and at an exit can look at around a 5 times multiple at this time. I actually have a buddy who has a really good thing going for him, and the acquirer is looking at a strategic acquisition and is looking at a 14 times EBITDA. That's great for an MSP, but most of the time it's like 5 times EBITDA for an MSP acquisition. Well, a SaaS platform is 10 times revenue, and it can even be more. The higher the revenue, the more the multiple. So, what I hear you say is you can approach all of these MSPs and say, how about we sprinkle a little SaaS into your portfolio? How about you become an investor in a SaaS company that you yourself is selling and that hundreds of other MSPs are selling? And now you get to ride the SaaS train and not do any of the work. You don't have to build your own SaaS product. You don't have to do any kind of sales, or we got it all done. So it's almost like a bolt on to their investment portfolio that they themselves can directly control through the sales that they are doing. You, sir, are a very, very smart person. Look forward to seeing the pitch deck. What's the PR stunt going to look like?
Well, so I don't know exactly what the PR stunt's going to look like, but what I was imagining is there's part of the SEC issues are about notification and solicitation, right?
Correct.
And so trying to notify out that this opportunity is available to people we previously have relationship with, that there's some sort of relationship in place that can be documented, and doing it in a discreet way. um, so what I've been thinking about is perhaps um, doing one of two things: creating or utilizing an angel syndicate that's out there, right, for some sort of fund. There are companies out there, and you're familiar with several of them.
Mhm.
And the one that you were looking at escapes me right now. Or utilizing Anzu's fund itself
Mm-hmm.
to create and manage the roll up, where
Yep.
all we do is say, hey, there's an opportunity. It's being organized by Anzu's Capital. And that might even give us a layer of, um, call it social proof, trustworthiness. I'm trying to think of the right term.
Well,
Validation.
yeah, what
That
I would do is put on I would educate and put on like a webinar. I would invite folks to it and say, hey, look, we're doing a webinar on how to invest in SaaS companies as the owner of an MSP. And I would go through multiple ways. And at the end of it, I would, following all the SEC guidelines, you can give examples, you can show things, you can say, you know, so what you need to do is look for some organization that is doing ABC. And if you would like help finding that organization, you get to, we have all the
well,
compliance guide.
that's general solicitation. We could absolutely do that public facing. What I was thinking is taking the actual block of MSPs we have, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can, and then creating a
Ah,
webinar with Anzus that says Anzus Capital is organizing a syndicate portion of a total round where we're exclusively inviting MSPs.
I will do this next week.
And
You get
we set that up, and then there's a deck, there's a follow-up. Anybody who participates in that round has the option to become a paid advisor
yep,
to us. So we have our MSP council,
yeah.
and we build out that program where they're getting notifications, they're getting inside information, they're getting early release notes, etc., as an investor in our, but they need to come in our cap table as a single line, right? It's just
Yeah. The
Anzus
syndicate comes
MSP.
in, so that would be Anzus MSP Syndicate One, and that would be on the cap table and sit it next to all the other investors and et cetera, et cetera. So you can have a syndicate of 100, and I can even go down as low as $5,000. It
That's
depends
what
on
I
how much
mean.
we want to have this thing
So
made.
if Anzus wants to manage it, like
Right, right, right,
my
right.
thought was probably 25 to 100 as a minimum, but let's say,
Well, actually, I'm talking to an MSP tomorrow. The owner of an MSP who's actually getting that 14 times multiple, and I will float the idea and say, "Hey, look, um, does this make sense? Because it makes sense to me."
yeah.
And
And like we say, we raise 1 to 2 million, so we're just,
Mhm.
but it gives us part of our uh, it gives us part of the arsenal we need to really create an MSP advisory committee on our side. And it allows us to say things like, for MSPs by MSPs.
Correct.
We're in the space, we are fully, and therefore, when we have our exit, these MSPs get to benefit from that. And now we have a long tail set of relationships where
Mhm.
we can go back and do what several people did, including um, uh, Kevin and Matt, who are guys who started a group called ID Agent, and when they sold out. That was a Freudian. When they exited, they started a channel program because they knew the MSPs. So,
I think that that's how you win. I think that when people ask me where should I get my money from, and we go through all the different financing options, what I usually go back to is, by the way, the customer is the best investor. And but usually when I say that, I mean they want to buy your product. But you can literally say customers are the best investor. So especially if you're a SaaS company with small um, revenue transactions, right? When you're enterprise and you close a big deal and you make $700,000 in profit off of this $6 million deal you just did, that starts and funds your company. That's how I did a lot of my professional services at the beginning. Was I grew based off of the customer paying for my growth because they needed the services. But if you're doing a SaaS company or you're doing a company with low valued revenue transactions, it's really, really hard to have one person love you enough to do that. But somebody who sees the trend and the customer who's already working with you can turn around and say, I'm absolutely willing to invest. And you can do that on multiple sides. So I like that you're talking MSPs, but there's also chief security officers out there. Syndicate of chief security officers would work. Um, People who are motivated by mission as well as wealth would be interested in this because they'd say, look, I don't like the way ABC is going. I want to change that, and I'm willing to vote with my dollars. So, no, I think this is a great idea. It's a great plan. I think as the great theologian Ricky Bobby once said, um,
hmm.
you got to learn to ride with the cougar in the car, um, and if you're not first, you're last. And
I received that wisdom.
yeah,
Thank you
yeah,
for that
you're welcome.
benediction at the end. Okay,
Yeah.
so we have a plan to do that now. So let's put that wheel into motion and let's spend a couple of months putting that into place as part of.
Sure.
I think that'll be very powerful in our next funding round to also show up with a pre-commitment of a syndicate, and that says like, here we go. When your terms are finally established, the syndicate intends to participate, and
Mhm.
so that would be.
Hey, look, I just got my emotional needs met. I don't know what else we're supposed to be talking about today. I'm excited. I want to go build a pitch deck.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Are you do you have anything else you wanted to explore? Because, well, why don't I give a little update?
Yeah, please.
Um I've been the hypothesis that I'm currently working on is that it is easier to raise a fund if you can align with a city that also wants to see the thing happen that you are trying to get done. And so over the last couple of weeks, I've been heading down to Tampa. I've been meeting with various people. I've been networking. My took us off. Lots of steak has been consumed. Apparently, a lot of this stuff happens over steak dinners. Um, and I have now positioned the fund that I want to start. And the model I'm going to be using is I'm going to be pitching to high net worth limited partners who want to see Tampa build continue the momentum of the tech industry that's down there, and so this will really resonate with high net worth people who want to see their city do a thing. So I'm going to, yes, you have to provide outsized returns. They need to get their money back, but they're also now going to choose things that help with the city's mission. So I'm going to be targeting those. I'm also going to be targeting raising money from um, existing funds because what I've identified is that the city of Tampa that we're looking at is lacking three things in the cybersecurity world. First is deal flow. They just they don't have a whole lot of deal flow. which is why a lot of these funds are tech funds and they're not cybersecurity funds, because they have to invest in tech because there's just not enough deal flow for cybersecurity. The second thing is lack of the ability to do sufficient due diligence on the cybersecurity companies. Right, a cybersecurity company is a different breed, and you want people who know how to do all that. And then finally, it's the post-investment support, where how do we get that first revenue? How do we actually help the early stage company get all the revenue they need to reach a Series A? And so that really crystallized, and I put it all down in a pitch, and I have sent it to all the right people. And so now I will be following up, and we will find out if my hypothesis is correct or not. But it's exciting to take action and to see a thing go, because there's so many times that we can stay here and work on our pitch deck. I mean, version 18 is going to be the one that convinces everybody, when really what you need to do is go and talk to human beings, shake hands, find out what they're interested in, and align with them. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm also being another funding source wants us to go to a conference with them in May, and they are paying for our flights and our hotels, and that's cool. When someone's like, "We believe in what you're doing so much, and we believe in how you're going to be able to help us. We're going to pay for you to go to these things." That's pretty cool. Um, it makes me feel like there's a tipping point coming when you can stop spending your money, and other people think that what you're doing is so valuable they start spending their money.
Mm. Yeah, that's um I remember when one of my mentors, he wasn't a mentor at the time. It was the first time that I invited him to Greenville, and he was coming down. I was doing a federal contracting thing at the time, but we were thinking about starting a school together.
Hmm.
And I said, "Hey, you should come to Greenville. I'd love to have you down here." And he goes, "Okay." And he picked some dates. I said, "All right, send me the dates." And I went ahead and sent him the hotel that I had reserved for him. And then I
Yeah.
said, "Here's where we're having dinner." And then at dinner I paid for him. He was blown away because there's just a group of people who is used to always paying for everybody else.
Hmm.
And he being, 40 years my senior, had just absolutely assumed that he was paying for everything. Now I didn't
Yep.
pay for his flights because he had his own little way that he did it, but
Yep.
the I still remember to this day. It was near tears, but it was emotional for him to say like, "Thank you for hosting me and picking out a good place to stay and taking me to your favorite restaurant and telling me what to get and picking up the tab and all those things." Like,
Yes.
and so
Thank you.
it's
I love that, because you're right. Often we get in the habit of taking care of others, and especially if you're a powerhouse entrepreneur, or when in order to have something happen, you think you're the one who needs to do it, and then have somebody take that off of your plate. That relief is that's significant.
mhm. Yeah, I don't even, I mean, apart from you and maybe a couple other people that, like a couple of vendors I work with, when I visit them, they pick
Yep.
up the tab. Everybody else, like even at our company, when when the tab comes at the end of lunch, we've had a great company meeting,
Uh huh.
no one else is saying like, "Hey, I got this."
Yeah.
And I don't expect them to either. I
No,
just want to.
and that's appropriate, but still, it's still the thing that's on your shoulder. It's
But
another
here,
expense. It's another.
here's the crazy part about it though. The executives and mentors I know, who I respect, 100% of them are gracious. Make sure to say thank you. They say thank you deliberately, right? They do not assume anything. However, internal to our company and then every other company I've run, um, when we do like a company bonus or a Christmas party or something like that, it's about 1 in 7, 1 in 10.
Mm,
And I always think about, there's a story in the Bible about Jesus healing these lepers, and I believe there could be seven, but I believe there are 12 of them, and 12 of them are healed. and they start running off to celebrate, but only one comes back and thanks Jesus. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's just human nature. Like, it's like, oh, finally, I've been healed. I've been entitled to be healed. I'm going to go back to all the other things. And only one of them turns around and says, thank you, Jesus. And that's not to give me a Jesus complex. It's to make a comment about how many times I might just run away and, and then not turn around and say thank you. But
Yeah. That's what you just triggered for me. I was like, oh, shoot. Who do I need to turn around and say thank you to? Because this business that we're in is about the relationships, and it's about people helping each other.
mhm, that's right. Awesome, man. Cool. Anything else on your mind? I got a
No.
takeaway from you on, like you were rounding out there, and I interrupted you about the relationships and the long tail, how much effort it takes to put into all this, and
Yeah.
so, um,
Yeah.
yeah,
My takeaway for the week is, or for the last little while, is it will take longer than you think. You should not attempt to raise money if you don't have access to the people who can write checks. And if you don't have access to them, you need to network your way into it or build relationships with influencers who do. And, I, and wow, a good CFO who knows people, that's my favorite human being on the planet. Right. So, yeah, maybe I need to bring in a fractional CFO to my fund to line up the right LPs. So, anyway,
similar.
all right. So here's here's what I learned from you. Um, two big takeaways. The first one was your observation that the committee and the underwriting process of a VC firm doesn't actually present how it's going to happen during the first couple of conversations, and you're going to waste an awful lot of time if you don't take responsibility for disqualifying VC firms earlier in the conversation. Um, the second thing that I got from you is if other people won't do their effing jobs, uh, you have. Hold on, I wrote it down because it was so good. Where did it go? Um, Man, no, oh, I lost it. I lost it.
I said, if people don't do their effing jobs, then you have to do yours.
Well, there you go. And also, I took up the fact that you have a beautiful singing voice. So, what did you hear from me? Give me some positive affirmation on my wisdom.
Well, you were playing yes and with my ideas, and so
Did you just say I had no original thoughts and all I could do is riff? Are you like I'm on like the crappy bass player in the jazz band, and like you're the fancy trumpet player or the saxophone player that carries the melody? Is that what you're trying to say?
that's exactly what I said.
Okay, cool. I just want to be clear. I just like clarity. That's fine.
No, well,
Dum, 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 dum.
my point was that your comments were taking my observations to the next level, right? So, which is what you do. You're a maximizer, an optimizer.
Mm-hmm,
You,
mm-hmm.
so the takeaways that I'm thinking about and I have right now, are, well, one, your enthusiasm to go ahead and start, which I thought was pretty cool, right? And then your comments on the work you're doing taking longer than it uh, than you originally anticipated, and what does it mean to really cultivate true long term relationships? And we made comments about being grateful, and also about um, the the amount of energy and joy you're getting out of people showing up and supporting you,
Yeah.
and doing something as simple as, "Hey, yeah, we'll cover your flights and hotel." You're like, "Whoa, did somebody else just reach for the bill?"
Yeah.
And how much, and to take away like how much that means to somebody,
Yeah.
especially
Significant.
somebody who constantly does it. I was saying the in a negative light, people who expect you to reach for the bill are rarely appreciative, but people who always reach for the bill are very appreciative.
100%. It's shocking. It's shocking. All right. Well, as always, it's fun hearing your wisdom, but it's mostly fun hearing mine.
Yes.
There you go. All right, buddy. Hey, and thanks for joining us for the TSOB podcast. Find us on LinkedIn and give us your hot take. The whole reason we're doing this is to get access to better conversations that help us up our game. And if you have something you want to share, we want to hear about it. Find us on the TSOB LinkedIn group and jump in with 2 feet. We can't wait to chat.